Hello there and welcome back to Cybos TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew. On this, the last morning of Cybos 2014, we're broadcasting live from the Boston Convention Center, and I'm delighted to have been joined by two expert panelists. We're going to be talking about corporate perspectives on the RMB. Are global corporates really increasing their use of it for trade settlement? Well, welcome Jochen Metzger from Deutsche Bundesbank. Good morning to you. And welcome Ki-Ju Wong from HSBC. Gentlemen,
good morning.
Very good morning, and thank you for joining us here. First, maybe if I can come to you, Ki-Ju, first of all. How have you seen cross-border deals accelerate since 2010, since everything changed?
Well, I think since everything changed, the government's push towards RMB internationalization, we've seen a huge growth, right, in terms of not just payment volumes, but also capital flows going in and out of China. So if we look at some statistics, for RMB, it's the second most currently most used trade finance currency, seventh most used payments currency in the world. We're looking at financial institutions moving up from 900 to over 10,000 FIs using RMB for their customers in terms of settlement. So I think the growth has been phenomenal. Trade growth out of China from 3% in 2010, we're now almost at 18% of all cross-border trade being settled in RMB. So I think the growth has been phenomenal. I think it's been basically driven from three perspectives. One, obviously, is the government's proactive push towards providing liberal and flexible policies in terms of encouraging the use of RMB for cross-border flows, for trade settlement, for capital flows. We're seeing a lot more of these programs or pilot programs coming up in China. I think secondly of all, and more importantly also, is the acceptance of governments outside of China in supporting the use of RMB as a currency itself. And I think lastly, right, it's also the acceptance of corporates who realize now that there are real operational efficiencies and benefits to be had when they migrate into the use of RMB, that has led really to the rise of the RMB coming forward in a very kind of structured but in a very flexible manner at the same time.
Jochen, it has been extraordinary. It's only been 4 years since the internationalization, but what's going on in the euro area?
In the euro area, there are various initiatives coming along to establish RMB clearing banks. And those RMB clearing banks are meant precisely to facilitate corporates to use RMB in their invoices and for their payments. And in particular, we are having an RMB clearing initiative in Frankfurt. The German government, Mrs. Merkel, and the Chinese government, President Xi Jinping, they are promoting this, and the Bundesbank, we are helping to our best ability.
It's interesting that some countries are embracing it more than others, it seems.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a process as it moves along. So if you look at Hong Kong today, where they first started off in 2010 as an offshore center, and you see the growth in RMB deposits being placed there. At Hong Kong today, there's probably about 900 billion of deposits going there. And if you look at the other offshore centers coming up, such the likes of like Taiwan, of Singapore, you're seeing the growth too. So I think it's a gradual process. As more countries come on board and embrace it, right, they will ultimately be also then rolling out new products and services within their region, which then goes to support the needs of corporates. So it then creates kind of like a flow out of China and into China back again.
And Jochen, from where you sit, what can you see the different hubs offering different things?
For me, this is quite natural because the conditions on the ground in each hub are different. If you look at Germany, at Frankfurt, say German Sino trade is the volume of UK, France and Italy combined. So in Frankfurt, the business of the clearing bank will be driven by the needs of corporates. Mid-cap corporates, they want to pay their bills, they want to receive RMB. Whereas if you look at Luxembourg, I don't know about any statistics of Luxembourg Chinese trade, but Luxembourg is the place for asset management. So I would expect the clearing bank in Luxembourg to take care of asset management needs. Paris is a little bit in between Luxembourg and Frankfurt. Paris has a bit of both worlds, and London, that's the capital market, that's the dim sum market, so they have also their own, needs the clearing bank may need to match.
Li Kiju, what about Hong Kong and Singapore?
I mean, if you look at Hong Kong and Singapore, it's very much what Jochen was indicating earlier in terms of being driven by customer needs. So, for example, in Hong Kong, some people have indicated, is it, are they competing with one another, Singapore and Hong Kong, in terms of developing an RMB infrastructure? But they're not really, because each site really caters to a kind of speciality. So, for example, in Hong Kong, a lot of times it's more seen towards raising of capital, right? Whereas in Singapore, they see themselves as establishing more potentially RMB FX products, right, that come into place, derivatives, right? So each place really playing on its kind of like strength and also catering to the needs of the various corporates in each area.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
It is.
It's
It is
all fitting together, trying to work out where each piece fits. Jochen, we've talked so much in the last 24 hours about the regulatory pressures on everybody in this industry, but specifically with the RMB, how does the regulation fall?
The RMB regulation, I guess this is first and foremost something that is driven by policy in China. For the clearing bank, I guess we have to take it as a given, and the clearing bank is meant to facilitate the, let's say, dealing with Chinese regulation. In theory, the clearing bank, let's say, enables the currency risk rather to be managed in Frankfurt instead of managing it in Shanghai, which is very difficult because the RMB is tightly regulated. So this is where the extra benefit of the clearing bank is kicking in with regard to regulation. German regulation will have only a very light touch on the clearing bank. It's banking business, you need a banking license, it's business like any other.
And finally, if you wouldn't mind doing a bit of future gazing for me, what's your predictions for perhaps, well, let's say for next year's Sibos, this time next year, how will things have progressed, and then over the next 10 years?
Well, I think, if we look at the pace and speed in which, RMB has been growing, so if you look at, I guess, the pace and velocity, the expectation obviously is that, the RMB will probably become convertible within the next 2 to 3 years. We'll probably look at China's trade numbers being settled in RMB moving from 17% to maybe about 30%, 1/3 of China's trade. And all these things are possible because we are seeing a lot of new developments coming up from China too. With the RMB cross-border pooling schemes that are being made available in China, you're going to see a lot more RMB having the ability to not just flow outwards from China, but also have a two-way flow. So I think there'll be a lot more new and exciting developments for corporates and institutions to take advantage of.
And Jochen, what do you think the main challenges are, the main problems the RMB might be facing over the next few years?
I guess the main problem still is, let's say, to cope with the many regulations that you have on RMB business. Yesterday we had a big discussion in the Standards Forum on STP processing of RMB payments on the purpose code. So I think the big effort has to go in the fine details. It's in the details where you can make the difference. If you take the US dollar as a benchmark, we would have the aim, the objective to have RMB payments almost as smooth as US dollar payments. And this is not an easy task.
No, that's a pretty big task. And as you've said, the devil's in the detail. Well, thank you so much to Kiju Wong from HSBC and Jochen Metzger from Deutsche Bundesbank. Many thanks, gentlemen, to both of you. That's it on the RMB for now from Sibos TV. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes, though.